I heard the gospel for the first time.
Huh.
You know, and it was as if a line were drawn in that little back bedroom, you know, on the musty, dirty green carpet, you know, and it was like, here was my life here, and then my life to come. And I just was like, man, I know if I step over this line, it will never be the same. And it was as if, it reminded me of that time when we were in that waterfall and we put our hands through the waterfall. But it was like as if, you know, Jesus just reached out, took my hand, you know, and brought me across the line. And I believed, you know.
And was it an immediate sort of marked difference?
Immediate. Oh. Immediate. One of the most powerful, emotional, and really visceral moments of my life of following Christ. And, you know, I'm a big believer of God is so personal with us that he knew that's what I needed.
Yeah. And were you two together at the time?
We were not. Yeah. It took him a few days, I would say, maybe a week. Do you think a few days?
Yeah.
And he came to me and he said, what do you think about the fact that I've become a Christian? And I said, well, I don't even know what you mean. And I don't know about that. And I was a little afraid of it. I mean, I just didn't really, we had Jesus freaks in high school, and I had been to church a little bit growing up off and on with I had not heard those words like that before.
So that might have been more disturbing to you than the substance abuse background?
Well, you know, yes.
Yeah, like, are we getting into one more round of craziness?
Yeah, it was, well, we've already been through so much. Now what is this going to be? So, but as the days went on and as we were talking, and I began to find that I had questions I didn't know that I had. And they began to rise to the surface. And the first one was, really, why should I believe this Bible? Why should I take what because we were having this conversation, so he was trying to, you know, tell me what he had been studying and learning.
Yeah, after 3 days, I was an expert.
Yeah.
I know. So, you know, my first thing was, well, why should I believe this book? Why should I think it has authority? And so as things unfold, I happened to find my first book that was in an encounter with an apologetics author.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was something that Chuck had borrowed from the saxophone player, and it was laying around the house. I read just enough to say, maybe there's something a lot more here than I know.
Yeah.
And then I had a question that was, is the Bible sexist? And I happened to be driving around Sacramento, California, which is where we lived. And like a magnet, I was driving downtown one day running errands. I saw a bookstore out of the corner of my eye that I'd never seen before. I think it was a Bible bookstore, a Christian bookstore of some sort. I pulled my car over, parallel parked, got out, went inside. And just like it was lit up, it called, you know, there was a book that was, Is the Bible Sexist? That was the title, and it was by Donald Blesh. Is that the right way you say it? And so it kind of went like that. It was like little steps, do a little bit of reading. I didn't read whole books, but it was just enough to say, well, maybe there's more, keep going. And then we went to the saxophone player's church, just as kind of, I thought, well, that might be a nice thing to do with our family. We've had a lot of hardship in our family, so maybe we'll try something nice. And then I encountered the church, people who actually really believed and who were caring for each other and each other's needs, and who were very welcoming to us. And
corporate musical worship too. I remember you remarking about the sound of people singing together.
Yeah.
That being
See, I would wonder if that might be a stumbling block to you, particularly as a trained musician.
Yeah.
Did you initially have this sense of evaluating artistically what was going on?
Of course. I was a downtown hipster, you know. a classic for that era, late 70s, early 80s. And very popular musician, played my own music, had following, filled clubs, people. So this was a big surprise to everyone. I mean, that this happened. So yeah, I still had my musician's cap on, but the great thing is that it was almost like I was coming in on Mike Butera, the saxophonist. It was his imprimatur that was leading, right? And so I was following him. And so it would be kind of like, if I thought it was goofy, well, surely Mike knows that. And if he's cool with it, then, I can roll with it
That
too,
makes sense.
right? Because not too long after that, I went to my first Christian bookstore, Berean bookstore, and I bought like 4 copies of CCM magazine, like back
I used to read
issues.
CCM magazine, yeah.
And I bought, I think, 4 vinyl LPs, and I brought them home and listened to them, and I was like, oh man, this is not good. There was one of them that I liked more than another, and I think it was a Keith Green one. But yeah, so I was immediately confused.
Yeah.
I was immediately confused. I mean, honestly, I just prayed, and I didn't have any. There was no one to counsel me. There was, it was like I had this, this experience with Mike, and then immediately started going to church with him. But the rest of my life was still the same. I mean, I was still a young man that was on a track to be a pop star, who was a songwriter, who was going to LA and, just working my way up the music business ladder.